Hey, everybody. I can't really say why I'm doing this video other than I've had sort of like an impulsive desire to put out some content regarding things that I have been thinking about and coming to realize this past year in my life, because it's pretty heavy stuff. It's pretty, I guess you could say, out there. Relative to like what people tend to talk about or think about or how they perceive the world or reality or whatever. So I spent the most of my life. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm from the Western world. I'm from the United States, and I had a pretty standard American life. I'm very fortunate in that I come from a wealthy family. That both my parents met at a in college, and they're both hardworking people, and they've provided for their family. So I was spoiled growing up. I went to the best schools, and I kind of just grew up thinking that I would kind of do what my parents did, and I would get married and have kids and try to make enough money to have a house and then a shore house, and then this would be the kind of system of desires and dreams that I would want to accomplish before I pass on. And ultimately, it's really, at least the advice that stays with me that my dad used to always give myself and my brothers would be, find the right woman, have children, and then you'll know what your life is meant to be. Because I think that's kind of what he realized. He was probably my age, thinking, wait, what the hell what is life? I feel like everyone reaches a point, or most people kind of question, like, what am I actually doing with my life? But then we don't go into the thought, like what am I? Like, what are we doing here? What is life really? But it's like such a kind of an esoteric or strange thing to bring up, and people tend to look at you like, what's wrong with you? Like, keep going through the motions. Like, don't question the system. It's all going to work out. Like, you don't have to. But I personally have had a year off, not working. Plenty of time to myself, a lot of time in solitude. My sweet girlfriend has given me the space that I've needed to contemplate reality, as heavy as that sounds. And I've come to some personal conclusions regarding the state of humanity that are pretty overwhelming, like very intense and very shocking, and in a lot of ways, not scary, but it's just unbelievable. So if you still find yourself interested, I guess kind of hold on tight. But so one of the things that I've been contemplating is what I am. Like, there's this body, I have this personality, but what is the literal I sensation? Like, what is this? We all, like, it's almost ineffable. It's hard to put into words. Like, what is this I? Literally. Like, what is it? Because there is the body, but I don't feel like I'm so much the body. Certainly it's me. When you look at me, this is who I am. This is the form that I carry. Just as you look at a plant is a plant. Like, that's what it physically is. That's how you can see it and understand it. But that's what it is. But humanity, the difference between a human and a plant is that we are self-aware. So I am aware of myself, thus I can question what I am. And so on the inside, what is this I? Like, what is it, literally? Because I am 26 years old, and I can say, despite having been given everything from my parents, like everything you can imagine you want and desire, I've been given that. And I like to think I'm a pretty talented dude, right? Like, I'm a musician, I'm very passionate about music, and I love people and all these things, and still I found myself depressed, almost like I didn't fit in this world. And so I really did. I grew up, like, even the music I loved growing up was super sad music. Like, I would say tragically beautiful are the two words I would use to describe my life, which doesn't make sense because I have been given everything. So there has to be something else. Like, why is this happening? Is it a chemical imbalance? No, I've had that checked. What is actually wrong? The truth is, my identity, the thing that I identify as this I, this me, has held me back my entire life. So I grew up. I had a dad that was really hard on us. He's a very strict person. He's found a lot of success. You know, his parents weren't around growing up, so he kind of just is a self-made man. And in this world, if you're a self-made man and you find yourself succeeding and making a lot of money and attaining the things that we're kind of told are essentially the things to go after in life, you kind of develop, I guess you call it an ego, like sort of, I've done this, I did this, I understand how life works. So when I have my children, I'm going to discipline them in a way that sets them on the path towards the success that I've found. So my dad set each one of us kids on a path towards materialistic success. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's cool to have, in a sense, depending on perspective, it's cool to have a giant pool and a giant house and all this for a little while, right? Have you ever bought something really cool, like a brand new car, and you bring it home and it's really awesome for a couple weeks, even a couple months, maybe a couple years, and you're like, okay, this is kind of, I guess it's cool, but now I want another car. Like, you know, it's been cool for as long as, 2 years or whatever, but now I'm ready to move on. It's never lasting. So like the lasting happiness that we as a society tend to go after is not really there. We go after things. We don't, and it just seems like if that were a mathematical equation, I'm always going after things. It means that I'm never satisfied. So I think it's worth it to question what isn't satisfied. Like, we're all here on earth, living beings. Why can't we just be happy right here, right now, peaceful in the moment? Like, what is causing me to think, like, shit, like, I haven't figured out life yet. I need to get out there and find what'll make me happy. But then we go out and find those things, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm still not happy. I still haven't found it. So that's essentially it. I've spent this past year contemplating, what is it? What is it that we're all after? And I couldn't find the answer. We're all after happiness, but through which item that I can get am I going to be happy? Like, there is no thing you can get to be happy. Obviously, the happiness comes from within. You're the happy thing. Like, what's the difference between a man holding $1 million who's happy and a man standing next to him who is broke, who's happy? Well, one of them's holding $1 million and the other one isn't, but they're both happy. What? Why? Because the happiness comes from within. You choose to be happy. So, let's look within for a little bit. So what is this I thing, right? All right, so let's recount our own personal, individual human experience. Each of us is born. We're infants. But our brains haven't developed to the point where we can look out into the world. I mean, literally, I held a 6-hour-old baby yesterday. It was the most amazing thing in my life. But you can tell that a baby, it's depth perception. It can't even see and understand. It's just there. It's just a present being. It's just an entity. It hasn't developed an inner world. It hasn't developed, it has no attachments to anything, no understanding of what it thinks reality is. It's just there. It just is. And it's content. So what are the implications of that? How come I'm this grown adult who thinks that I have a grasp on reality and what's real and what's true and what I should be going after, but I'm not happy? Like, I am fundamentally unhappy and dissatisfied. Why? Why can this infant come into the world and be totally happy with everything while not even knowing what it is? And here I am, I like to think I'm a seasoned vet with life, but I'm not happy. And we can all agree that that's essentially the point of life, is being happy, being content and peaceful and satisfied, being in the moment. So, what's the difference between that happy baby and myself? So you're born, you are a conscious entity without an identity. As time goes on, you can open a psychology book and look into it. A couple years goes by the time you're 5 or 6, you've been told who you are by your parents and your friends enough times, right? You're given a name. If you're a musician, you're told you're going to be a great musician. You have a lot of talent, right? And oh my God, okay, cool. Thanks, Mom and Dad. That's awesome. Like, that's who I am, right? Cool. I can vibe with that. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. You go to middle school, you start playing sports. A coach says, you're not good at this or you're great at that. And through that, you develop an identity, right? There's a center within consciousness develops. It's an identity. But how does an identity develop? It's because the mind develops to a point where it can look out into the world and attach itself to certain things and think, okay, like I was told that I sucked at that, so I need to work on that. And if I don't get good at that, I'm going to be living in my head thinking, you suck, you got to figure this out, like because you are who you are is not good at that thing, which is nonsense. That's not who I am. Who I am is the person that exists in this very moment without any thought about who I am. I know that might sound insane, but it blows my mind that sounds insane to people. When you stop thinking about who you are, you become who you are. When you stop trying to be happy, you find yourself content. When the journey no longer exists of finding happiness, is it that ironic that happiness presents itself? When I say in the moment, I don't just mean this there's a difference between understanding something intellectually and understanding something experientially. So, I could say, yeah, no, Jack, you're right. When you're in the moment, you're happy and you're satisfied and content. That makes a lot of sense. So how can the thing that doesn't understand how to be in the moment is this identity you've developed over time? It's called the ego. It's when the mind itself, we're all blessed with this amazing thing called the mind. It's when the mind itself believes that what it is its own thoughts. So it sounds crazy, I know, and it's taken me like a whole year to really believe that I'm not losing my mind. The mind has believed, and because people before us, my parents are going through the same thing. Like I have a dad who's hugely successful, not happy. Why? It's because he fundamentally believes that he is his thoughts, and his thoughts are saying, I'm not content because I'm trying to find something. The mind has developed this identity. And because we believe we are it, we're never going to be satisfied. We are always once removed from being in the moment because there's this thing thinking in our heads and we fundamentally believe we're it, so we can't even sit still in a quiet room for more than a few minutes before we feel like we're going to lose our minds because we think that we need to be finding something to be happy, whether it's alcohol, making money, finding a significant other, changing the way you look by going to the gym. I mean, it's endless. But the truth is, what you are is consciousness. The baby is an infant. What it is not, it doesn't have an identity, so what can it be? It's consciousness. It is conscious. There is a life force within each of us that is so blatantly what we are that it's hard to even realize. All of your thoughts have happened within something. You can say your body or whatever, but your body is moving because you're conscious. You're a living entity. You're a thing that is alive and aware. That awareness or consciousness, awareness is consciousness, it's the same thing, is what you are. So when I sit in a room and I start feeling anxious, like, oh, shit, and I learned a lot of traits from my dad. My dad is an anxious person. Love my dad to death. Great person, big heart, but he believes he's his thoughts, and he can't sit in a quiet room for more than 5 minutes without having to check his phone or, honey, when are we going to dinner? What are we going to do, this, that, and the other? It's like, relax, man. You're so blatantly, I mean, we as adults, we're insane. We believe we are our thoughts, which are inherently dissatisfied. The mechanism of the mind is to maintain life. So if we believe we are this mind, this thought, this thinking entity, then we are always going to be naturally and inherently dissatisfied. So how can we be, and it doesn't help, and I'll save this rabbit hole for another time, people who run our world are evil. They have given us mindless tech, they've given us, bad examples, but like fast food, Starbucks, the NBA, the NFL, sports, things that keep us busy in the mind with thought. They've given us activities and they make them They advertise them and ruthlessly throw it in our face. Sex, that's another one. I have a 10-year-old sister, and it is outrageous how hypersexualized our culture is. It breaks my heart. And this is something I'm waking up to too. It's unbelievable. But because it's what everyone else believes is like normal and cool, we just go with it. But it's unnatural. Our world right now is completely unnatural. And that's why the climate is... I can't say climate change exists because I'm personally a believer that the Earth is going through an inevitable, essentially an evolution of times, right? Because we're going off topic here, but climate change, in your own, everything is one. So when you think about your own human experience, when else are you reaching higher degrees of temperature at a more fast-paced oscillation? Well, when you're sick, when you're getting over an illness, like a fever, you get the shivers, but you also get really hot, and then it narrows in, and it happens more often until it's gone. Now we see our own weather patterns oscillating at a quicker rate. It's accelerating, and they're also bigger degrees. Why? Because the Earth's sick, man. It's going through some kind of transition. But we get all of our information from this entity, which we call the powers that be, and the longer they keep us mindless, the longer we struggle to realize things like I'm talking about right now. The fact that this world could be heaven on earth, and it's meant to be heaven on earth. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. I am by no means religious, but there are a lot of truths in the Bible. The truth comes from within, man. I mean, contemplate what you are. Ask yourself, what am I? What is this literal I sensation? Although it sounds crazy, and although your best friends aren't doing it, and maybe they'll block you from your text chain or your Facebook groups or whatever, these meaningless things that when you die will mean absolutely nothing in your recount of what mattered in the life that you've lived. Ask yourself these experiential questions, because if you don't, you won't find who you truly are. And it is so poetic that we're born, we enter this society where everyone, our adults, believe they're their thoughts. We as children look up to them. We go through this same process of being inherently dissatisfied until we realize the truth. Wait a minute. This whole world is messed up because everyone believes that they're their thoughts, and thoughts are inherently dissatisfied, at least when they're regarding the self. Certainly the thinking mind can find out things that are great in mathematics. It's a brilliant functioning mechanism. It's very smart. Certainly depending on who you are or whatever, but you're not that. The mind has happened within what you are. You're that thing. And if you're foreign to what enlightenment is, an enlightened person is one who has understood this fact that humanity, for the most part, very generally speaking, but I mean, Jesus, I'm from New Jersey. I'm from the center of ego, man. Like, people are so lost, and they discover who they are just by turning to the person next to them and say, oh, he's doing that. All right, I got to do, like, he's going to the gym. That's what I got. Like, it's unbelievable. No one thinks for themselves, again, generally speaking. But there's nothing to worry about. Ultimately, there's nothing to worry about. What's been veiled from us is the fact that, like, think about it. It's so obvious, but it's like we almost giggle at it because no one talks about it. You are alive. You are alive. You are a life. You're not your understanding of yourself. Fundamentally, come to that conclusion, because you're going to have to. Shit's getting real out in the world. You are not your identity in your head. That was really hard for me to accept, because I kind of had some narcissistic tendencies. And I think that's why I'm realizing this at a young age, is because of the fact that I lived in my head so much and believed that I was my thoughts so much that I was so depressed. And I thought all the time, I was thinking all the time, and because I believed my thoughts, which are inherently dissatisfied, I became hugely depressed at a young age. My whole life I was depressed. I played the piano, and all the piano music that I would play for my poor family would be like beautiful but sad music. And, you know, what is a musician? It's someone who's putting the emotions they're feeling in their world out into the world to hear. And it was sad, man. Really sad. But it's really worth it to question what you are. Because that's when you realize, wait, I am a life. I'm not my identity. I am life itself. And everything I see is life. A plant is life. A cloud is life. It is energy. It is some form of energy. Everything is energy. And they assume different forms. That's why this world is so beautiful, is because everything is different. I mean, each human being is born into this world with a unique personality, even before they develop the ego and the thoughts about what they think they are. Every flower has a different personality. Everything is unique. Every color is different. Every sound is different. But it's all the same. That is the paradox. It's an illusion. So too is the ego. It's an illusion. It's so easy to believe that you're your thoughts because it's, in essence, it's this voice in your head that's telling you what's what, right? Oh, okay, I am looking around. But you are the consciousness in which your entire understanding of yourself and your life and what reality is happening within. And if that is something that you're able to fundamentally conclude is a truth, then what happens is consciousness, this life force, becomes conscious of itself. Awareness becomes aware that it is aware. It doesn't mean that your life, that scares people. It scared me. But what happens is when you're willing to take that leap and essentially evolve, because you're letting go of all of these things that have held you back your entire life, all the dissatisfied BS, all the judgments of other people, right? The ego is the judger. You look around and you see a color, like, oh, I see the color red. I don't like the color red. That should be a different color. I look out and I see one. For me, I was a personal trainer for a while, and it breaks my heart to admit this. I would see someone who's, very obese, and I would say, how the hell can you do that to yourself? How do you not have the awareness to realize that the blatant health effects of that? But now that I'm realizing that this ego thing doesn't exist, I stop judging everything. I mean, what's the point? I'm wasting energy. I'm wasting my life. Let everyone do what they want, but as long as you're yourself, it shouldn't bother you. And if more and more people start to wake up and realize this, the fact that, holy shit, I'm not anything that I've ever thought, and no one is. It changes your whole experience of being. It does. It changes from someone who was so lost in the mind. And I can say that the kids that I grew up with are very similar to me. So I'm sure that this is, people must be depressed, and it breaks my heart because it needn't be. It's not even real. We're believing an illusion. You are life itself. You are not your identity. If you failed at something, that's not you. It shouldn't hold you back. You shouldn't be depressed. You shouldn't be dissatisfied. You should at least try to wake up and realize that this life is beautiful. It's a master-slave reality led by a pyramidal structure, and those who sit at the top know this truth. That's why they advertise BS all day, all night, sex, drugs, sports, like Coliseum sports. Jesus, I played college football and loved that stuff, and now I'm waking up and I'm like, oh my God, what? They want, it almost sounds like paranoid schizophrenia, but it's the truth of the reality. There is a power structure in our reality. There's a pyramid on our $1 bill, and they sit at the top, and we sit at the bottom. We don't know the truths, and they do. Google Bilderberg meeting. Who goes to that? What's going on at that? There are people who try to keep us mindless, who try to keep us suffering, who try to keep us from knowing what's really true. But, I've heard that the Earth's frequency is rising. Look up the Schumann, Schumann, resonance frequency. Just Google it. Just do it. Why not? Look it up. The Earth's frequency is rising, and plenty of us are waking up, man. And that's going to spread like wildfire. We need to realize that we are not our thoughts. When that happens, there's a good chance, particularly if you're from the tri-state area of the United States, at least I can say, you'll literally wake up and be like, oh my God, I've been living not my entire life, I was an infant for a while, but most of my life, it literally feels like you've been sitting behind a screen that has darkened your view of reality. It feels like when you really awaken, you're like, oh my God, things look more real. The senses are more in tune. Things are more beautiful. The experience of being is more intimate. It's because it's more real. Because life itself is just craving to live through you, because it is you. But because the mind has cleverly tricked us to believing that what we are is it. We're a one page, one veil separated from society. And that's why you go out, you walk into New York City, people hate each other. No one can agree on everything. We still believe like race defines what we are. We still believe that your country defines who you are. It's like, it's insane. It's like giant children lead this reality. People believe that because I'm born in the United States, I must fight for this country, and you're not from the United States, you're my enemy. That's ridiculous. You are life. This earth is alive. You are the earth. This is our universe. This is us. Everything you see is what you are. But we're so mindless, man. Listen, I'm 26. I'm a millennial. Everyone spends their time on their phones where I'm from. Everyone spends their time on their laptops looking at just ridiculous things that there's no learning. There's no care about beauty. There's no care about humanity. And there's so little passion and empathy and compassion. We care about sex so much and boozing and going out on Saturdays. It's like, Jesus Christ. You look around, like, if I see a woman I've never seen before, that woman is my sister, man. Like, there should be that relation between people and humanity. But there's this, I go for walks in the park every day. And I'll walk by someone and I will give them a big smile. And they look at me like I'm like a pedophile. They look at, why are you looking at me? Like this, sir, are you trying to hit on me? It's like, Jesus Christ. Our world, our humanity is so separate. And that's why we're so depressed. Because it's so unnatural. And we can't even see this truth because we believe we are our thoughts, which are conditioned by the people who run our world to keep us in this secular pattern of hating each other and feeling separate from this earth, it's almost like they tell us that we're on this hard, cold rock in the middle of a dead universe, but it's so not true. It isn't true at all. Don't waste your time going down the governmental rabbit hole. It's not worth it. At least go down the rabbit hole of your own experience and realize that you have spent your entire life believing yourself to be your thoughts. Meditate on that. I didn't meditate my entire life until a year ago, and it has changed everything. Everything about what I see in reality, and how I relate to the world, and how I move in the world, and how I feel, and how I participate. And it just breaks my heart knowing that we're all so sad and so depressed and so confused. And it's hard to make these videos, man, because I still have friends who they don't even know what I've been doing this past year, man. I used to be like, I was the captain of my college football team. I was like the talkative guy. I was the musician. I would get up before games. If there was a piano at our breakfast, I would go play for everybody. We'd be jamming, having a good time. I was a personal trainer. I really cared about how I looked. I used to judge people hardcore. But it's such bullshit. And we should all, there's so little true love, man. Like, we love each other, but we love each other for something. What can you give me in return from my love? You don't love me back? All right, then F you. I'm out of here. That's not true love. True love is selfless. When you love just because you love to love, man. And that's going to be inevitable when you let go of your identity, because it's not real. And you'll find yourself almost stuck in this moment. Stuck's the wrong word to use, because this moment, without any judgments of it, is the most beautiful thing in the world. So that's what I got today. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this kind of stuff, because quite literally I'm shooting from the hip. I just went to the pool with my girlfriend. It's a really beautiful day. She went to go hold her nephew. I keep doing that. Beautiful baby. And I'm just like, I got to get this message out, because I really feel like I'm not doing my part, knowing this stuff, walking around, seeing people suffer and not saying a word about it, because I'm mildly concerned about how I'm going to be judged for it. And that's on me. I need to let go of that. But this is the truth, in my opinion, that's going to change the world. We're not our thoughts. We are the life force in which all the thoughts have ever occurred. We are life itself. We are a manifestation of the universe here to experience itself. That's really what you are. And each of us is that. So now we can go back out into our lives knowing that, and allowing that to be the fundamental basis of our understanding of reality. No longer are we going to judge people. Imagine your life without judging people ever again. Imagine how much more fulfilling life would be. Just stop judging. Just be. It's great, man. Certainly easier said than done, knowing the conditionings we have in our thoughts, but everyone can do it. All it takes is the willingness. We all have that willpower. Don't forget it. So, alright. Peace out. If you guys want me to talk about anything in particular, I am happy to. Just let me know what you want to hear. Alright, guys. Take care. And please meditate. It's really worth it. It's really hard, particularly nowadays, to sit in a room and be quiet. And you might just discover some pretty potent things. Alright, peace out.